Hello, today in my writing process playlist I'm going to talk about finishing up my third draft. It's marked up and locked in. I am done a few weeks ahead of schedule, so I feel pretty good about that. There were definitely a few speed bumps. Took some time to get past those, but once I did, the ending kind of just happened quite quickly. But I think this draft was a lot like doing a challenging, repetitive puzzle, like those kind, that are like piles of jelly beans or a field of sunflowers or 1,000 sky blue pieces. I mean, I'm not really selling my book describing it that way, but it felt that way when I was doing it. The kind of puzzle where there are no anchors and I'm trying to find the right piece and turning it around and putting it in there. And in many ways, I think more than any other book I've worked on, this was like a 5,000 piece puzzle, a monster in some ways. It's quite ambitious, and as I've been processing it, I'm realizing that it's getting more and more ambitious. So at some point I'm gonna have to rein it in, but at this point I'm just letting it happen because that's where growth occurs, and I don't want to stifle myself too early, so I'm just kind of letting it go and see where it's going. But I've really been struggling with the sheer amount of data and characters, and I'm turning pieces around to make them fit in the right spot, just like I said with the puzzle. So much so that I had to make some major changes in this draft. Marked up and locked in. And as you can see, I've done lots and lots of markup, but this is a good thing. It means the work is alive, heading into directions I didn't foresee in my original plan, growing on its own. So I took a lot of time to incorporate all of my notes, especially at the end. There were about 2 weeks where I was just taking notes and trying to figure out where they belong. Sometimes you just don't know until you kind of assess the text more, and then you can kind of put them in. But these were little snippets of dialogue that I had saved, vocabulary words, things I still need to research more, and I'm going to do that in the fourth draft. Most of the things are now in their proper place, kind of locked in, which is exciting. There were some extra notes, but I added them in the front of the document, as you can see here. I just put them as a list, as about a page, and these are things that I can either include at a later date or just get rid of them if they don't belong. For me, that's part of the process, is having these little thoughts that I think of or words that I find, and I just save it. And it's a little bit like making a collage. When you make a collage, you don't always use all the pieces that you cut out. In the beginning, I had several packets of information. If you've watched my videos, you know that. But this is all inside the story now in one way or another. So I don't really have to use those anymore because I actually do a lot of my writing on the fly, like in coffee shops and on the go. I only have to carry the manuscript and one other page for my fourth draft, which is also exciting because I've been lugging around a bunch of stuff. The fourth draft. So let's talk a bit about the next one. It may seem that I'm getting closer to the end. I'm really not closer to the end. I have a lot more to do. But for the next draft, I'm going to jump back on the computer to my main Scrivener document, and I'll start from the beginning. And as I write, I'm going to fold in these comments and notes. I'll also be refining the writing. I'll explain more about this in the next segment of the series. But for now, I'm just going to say this next draft is about taking all of these ideas and notes that I organized and getting them in there, but also trying to figure out if this is correct. And I may end up going over each chapter several times, just trying to get it closer to where it needs to be. This isn't going to be a lot about editing and things, but there will be some minor edits going on. I mean, I did some minor edits in the paper draft. Any big changes? Yes, I ran into a few things I had to majorly change. Chapter 25 went through many changes. This is an important chapter, a kind of tense dialogue between my protagonist and antagonist. I added a lot to this, but I will scale this back as I refine it more. Another thing I realized, there's a scene during the most important part of the Eleusis rites where I needed more pageantry. It was kind of falling flat. It needs more characters there. It just needs more. I mean, when you have a scene like that where it's supposed to be this big event, it needs to feel big. And mine was feeling a bit flat. And sometimes to get the point across, you have to go big or go home. I mean, I'm a huge fan of brevity, of cutting things, and I will cut things from this chapter. However, in some cases, you need that big scene, that set piece. And in this case, I just didn't do it enough. I had to expand it, expand the amount of characters and more details into these characters, even if they're in just this one scene. But this is more for flavor than for plot. But the story needs it. I can feel it. Just when I started reading it, I was like, this just isn't working. Over the next few days, I'm going to take my notes about this and I'm going to flesh it out a bit, so when I get to this chapter in the 4th draft, I will have these new characters' positions thought through thoroughly. But other than these two things, all in all, it went pretty smoothly, I think. And I'm excited for the next draft. But I'll discuss that more in the next video. So that's all I got for today. Take care. Have a good one.